So this particular presentation is going to be about trailers for events. So organizing them, owning them, and renting them. And I would first like to quickly introduce Ryan and Carol. They are regional support managers, and they are going to be monitoring the chat for questions. So if you do have questions, please throw them in the chat, and then I will answer them kind of as we go along. So just a quick overview of what this presentation is going to cover. We're going to talk about what a trailer is, what goes into a trailer, and then we're going to do a little walkthrough of the trailer creation and reservation process that's on Robot Events, and then followed by some best practices. So I think I got this gig because I used to own a trailer and rent it out to folks up in New Jersey. And I know Ryan has a lot of experience with trailers as well in Virginia. So Ryan, if you have anything that you want to add, feel free to just hop on in and add it if there's something that I missed. So what is an event trailer? So an event trailer is essentially a trailer that has a package of equipment that's designed to facilitate the running of events. So the fact that a trailer is portable allows you to reuse that equipment for multiple events throughout a season. And it helps to facilitate that transportation from place to place. So when we talk about using an event trailer or setting up an event trailer, you really need to start, I think, with kind of having an overall plan of how that trailer is going to be deployed in an area. So, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you're only going to run 1 or 2 events per year. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to buy a trailer because you're essentially using it like you would a shed or a closet. The real key to using a trailer is that even though it has a lot of upfront capital costs, right? You have to buy a trailer to buy all this equipment. Because you can use it for multiple events per year and pay it off possibly over multiple years, it means you can invest in that and have it paid off over time and keep those prices affordable for teams. So there's a couple different sizes of trailers that you can look into. So my trailer that you'll see a picture of in a slide or two was a little tiny trailer. And I use that because I had have a Honda CRV, which only can tow 1,500 pounds. So I could not afford to rent a car or rent a van or rent a truck or buy a truck to haul a larger trailer. So I went with a little 4x6 foot trailer. Larger trailers, though, are really helpful, particularly for VRC, because if you have a large enough trailer, you can place the entire field perimeter sides intact in the trailer, which dramatically cuts down your setup time. Imagine being able to set up a VRC field where basically everything that's mounted to the field perimeter can just be left in place. And that's great. And as someone who spent years schlepping equipment up and down 3 flights of stairs into my apartment, keeping everything intact and keeping it at ground level is just an amazing advantage. Smaller trailers, they may not be able to store equipment, but as I mentioned with my car, it makes it more accessible for a wider variety of vehicles to tow, and it has some cheaper upfront costs. So all of this needs to kind of get factored into your overall plan. So this is a picture of my old trailer. So last I heard, it was happily transporting IQ fields up in New England. But this trailer I used held 6 IQ fields and 2 VRC fields. And I want to talk a little bit about what measures go into in addition to buying the trailer, you also have to factor in all these other kind of ancillary costs that go into it. So your insurance, locks for the trailer, a trailer jack, annual maintenance, because there are things that wear out on a trailer. If you get a larger trailer, I highly recommend putting some kind of security measure on it, like a GPS tracker. But all these things tend to add up. So you really want to kind of go into this with a plan and a budget, and that's going to inform, between what your costs are and how you're going to use it. That's going to kind of determine your plan for recouping all these costs. So one of our big kind of sticking points with the REC Foundation is that these events should be sustainable. No one should be running events and losing money. You should be having something that's financially, and mentally sustainable. So a trailer is a good way of doing that. And you can kind of incorporate that into your region, but it does require a regional kind of a regional buy-in. You need to have enough events to support a trailer. So some common contents that go into a trailer are the fields themselves, of course. Something else to consider would be platforms for the fields, not necessarily for VRC, but like for IQ. I had purchased folding tables at first for IQ, and then I actually built my own field platforms by using sawhorse kits that I bought off of Amazon. So with the way those work, you basically buy these brackets, and then you buy 2x4s, and you just cut everything to length. So you can make custom sawhorses whatever size you want. Lay a piece of plywood or a piece of foam insulation on top of that, and you have a perfect 18-inch high IQ table. Some other things that you might want to consider would be like tablecloths or banners, cable covers, and rugs. So if you were attending the session this morning about championship events, one of the topics was things that you can do to class up your local events. Kind of taking some of these best practices from a championship and bringing it down to the local level. And things like rugs and cable covers and banners and tablecloths are those things that you may not typically see at your local events, but with a trailer, you have the option of, like, let's use the example of Alliance Station for VRC, the Alliance Station red and blue. So this is something I've seen in Northern Virginia. They bought runners, red and blue runners, to put down, or 3 foot by 10 foot or 3 foot by 8 foot, whatever it is, rugs to put down to represent the Alliance stations, which looks great. But if you look at a local event, that might be a little bit out of reach because it's about $200 or so. If you have 2 or 3 fields, $50 a carpet, spending a couple $100 on carpet, that might not be something that's sustainable for one event. But if you're putting it in a trailer that's going to run 5 or 6 or more events, now you can take those costs and instead of incurring them all at once, you can kind of spread them out over time. So I think that kind of dovetails really nicely with the idea of a trailer, is that the trailer can allow you to elevate the quality of events that you have. Other things might be things like rope stanchions or barriers. Those little poles that have the rope that comes out to section things off. Again, you may not have the resources to buy or rent those for one event, but you can spread it out over time. And different trailers and different setups in different regions kind of have different levels of this. So my personal experience with a trailer, I had a very bare bones setup. Basically, it was just the facts. So fields, equipment, never owned a tablecloth, prior to this. Banners I would kind of have, but no rugs, none of that, rope stanchions or barriers. So very, very bare bones. But, for instance, I'll pick on Northern Virginia again. They would have, the rugs. They would have the stanchions. They had a scoring table with, video and audio mixers built in that you would just deploy. And it's a way that if you have nothing, it's basically an event in a box that you can set up. My setup that I had in New Jersey, I had all that equipment, sure, but it was nowhere near as easy to deploy because I had a small trailer. I'd have to break everything down. And we'll talk a little bit about best practices about breaking things down, some other points. But really, you can take a look at a trailer and say, all right, what size trailer do I have? What can I fit in here, and what do I need? And you kind of break things up into kits. And I'll get a little bit more on that later. We can also go as far as having things like volunteer supplies involved. So I was at an event in Virginia, and this was in Prince William County, but they had all their volunteer supplies in boxes. And it was really, really nice. So one of the things that I really liked is there are clipboards that you can buy that have space inside of them for paper. So, you know, I just had my chimney inspected in my apartment, and the inspector had one of those clipboards, and he would take out my form, fill it out, give me my copy, take his, and then he would move on to the next unit and take another form out of the box, all built into his little clipboard. That had a little pocket for pencils. It was great. But they had, every judge had a clipboard with a notepad and just a pencil, a pen, a highlighter. Everything was just there. And this is kind of how I started with my trailer. Is, you know, we were spending a lot of time in New Jersey just setting up every event. We had to set up the IT infrastructure. We had to get all the supplies. And, you know, back in like 2016, it's like, you know what, it's probably easier if we just organize it once and we just keep on using the same stuff. So the same thing with things like a router and laptops and Raspberry Pis. You just set everything up once. And as long as you keep using it and you have someone trained to deploy it properly, you can just keep on using it without having to, you know, fix the same problem every single event. So we have a system built into robot events for facilitating the sharing of trailers. So every event partner, when you're given access, you have a admin button that is your admin portal to your events, but there's some other tabs too. So if you're looking to reserve a trailer, you have to use that button in the admin portal, and I'll show you that in a second. If you have a trailer and would like to put it into the system, you need to contact your regional support manager, and that is a separate option that we have that we can enable your account to have a trailer and set it up. So let me show you a little bit about how that works. So right now we're in robot events. I'm going to go to admin. Okay. Sorry, that was a little weird. I just clicked on the admin button, and on your left-hand side, you have trailers. So I set my account up to be a trailer owner, but typically, unless that's been activated, all you have is reserve a trailer. But let's click on my trailers and see what that looks like. So it's completely blank because I don't have a trailer. So if we go up to this green button in the corner, it says create a trailer. And we have the option to name our trailer. So if there are folks that have multiple trailers, I know Nova Systemic in Virginia has, I don't know how many trailers they have, but more than one. They can name all their trailers. You upload a PDF with the contents. So I would recommend this be like a checklist, and that way whoever is renting the trailer can use it to make sure that you're getting everything back. You have your terms and conditions, which is another file that you create. So you might have a term and condition that you have to pick the trailer up at such and such a location between 3 and 6 o'clock, you know, or whatever other terms and conditions you need. There's a minimal rental days notice, there's a minimum cancellation notice, and there's two different prices. So one is a deposit price, and the other is the actual reservation price. So the way a deposit works is that in order to get, in order to reserve the trailer, someone will need to put down a deposit first. So let me show you a little bit of kind of how that process plays out as if you're going to rent a trailer. So I'm going to go to reserve a trailer, and I had previously made a trailer. So Ben's example trailer here, I want to rent it from September 2nd to December 7th. And you can choose when you set up your trailer, you can set up the availability dates for it. So I'm going to click on more information. And there's a pickup location, there's a price, there's a deposit price, and there's the contents and terms. If I go to reserve this trailer, okay, I'm going to need to upload some information like my insurance and driver's license. You have to sign off on the terms, and then you request your reservation. So the person who owns the trailer has to approve that reservation request before it moves on to the next stage, which would be actually putting in a deposit and setting it up, if a deposit is required.
Can I
So
interrupt
this
fast?
lets you, as the trailer owner, kind of have a bit of a filtering process. So if there's someone that you'd rather not rent your equipment, you have the ability of filtering that out and refusing that reservation.
Hey, Ben, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I had a couple questions on the topic that you're on right now. I thought would be good for you to interject. Catherine asked, what about insurance on the trailer and content, possibly in the event of losing trailer in transit? So maybe some recommendations on the insurance part.
Right. So, and this kind of goes back to a very fundamental question that you need to ask, and that is, who is transporting your trailer? So some folks might have just a trailer and you pick it up and drop it off yourself. Other folks might include delivering the trailer and picking it up as part of that price. I always picked up and delivered my own trailer. That was just kind of me, but you might have a different policy on that. And with regards to insurance, every state has different rules. So in New Jersey, the trailer insurance is covered by the vehicle that is doing the towing. But different states might have different rules on that. You may need to get a separate insurance policy. And if you're going to be renting this out kind of as a part of your program, I would recommend getting a separate insurance policy, because you may not have, it may count as a business, and that may not fall under your personal car insurance. So hopefully
Also, another quick question. Two of them that kind of relate together. Chris asked, does payment flow through robotevents.com or is it handled externally? And along the lines, John asked, what is the cut that the RDC takes from the payment?
Sure. So the payment goes through Robot Events, and I don't believe the REC Foundation has a cut. I asked, and I don't believe they take anything out of it. This is just something that we're doing to facilitate people sharing resources. But I would recommend reach out to your RSM. We can get maybe a little bit more explicit messaging on that. But as far as I know, it is not something that we charge anything for. And I see another question, which are, what would be grounds for refusing to rent out a trailer? And that is entirely dependent on you, the trailer owner. So I'm just going to give a hypothetical here. Let's say I live in a state and there's one event partner that they mean well, but every event they run is chaos. And there is a good likelihood that your equipment is going to be damaged at that event, or it's not going to be put back properly at that event. And in any event, it's going to be detrimental to you as the person who is renting out a trailer, right? If that's the case, I would recommend, unless you're able to come to some kind of agreement with that person, to deny that. I've had that come up just personally, where and this goes back to the safety issue regarding trailers in general. You can't have unbalanced loads in a trailer because it creates a dangerous situation on the roads that could lead to the trailer being damaged, your car being damaged, and people getting hurt and other vehicles getting damaged. So I would recommend that, as a part of your terms and conditions that you set up, you have very specific instructions, including pictures of how that trailer gets reloaded, because that prevents the situation that I was in, which is, while it's freezing rain in January, having to restow my trailer because a bunch of students just literally shoved equipment in wherever it might fit without any kind of grand organizational plan, or even just, logic. So that's something that I would do. I would say, if I was going to write a terms and conditions, I would say the event partner is responsible for the trailer. They supervise personally the loading and unloading of it, and I would give them instructions of how that gets restowed. And that would be what I would do. Other grounds might be if someone has a reputation of not paying, or paying like 6 months later, and if your organization can't handle that, and that's not acceptable, they'd refuse to grant the request unless they're able to, confirm that they can get that payment on time. So, but that's up to you. The REC Foundation, you're providing a service to other, event partners in your region. That's, thank you for doing that. That's not, we're not gonna, I don't see myself as an RSM interceding and saying, oh no, you have to grant their reservation request. This is not going to happen. So hopefully that kind of answers that. But basically, getting back to this, you would upload this information, you'd request your reservation, and what would happen, because I require in this trailer a deposit, you would not have, you wouldn't actually have the trailer rented until you put in that deposit. And that prevents folks from saying, oh yeah, I don't know what day my event is going to be, but I want the trailer, so I'm going to reserve it for these 3 dates, and then I'll tell you which one it really is later. Nope, you got to pick a date, you have to put it on a deposit. If someone else gets in a deposit before you, then they might get the date. Now, as a trailer owner, you don't need to use a deposit, but that functionality is built in because we recognize that that's going to be a common situation that folks are in. So you got to put down something. I recognize that event partners, they may not have a lot of money up front. They kind of get money in advance. So this deposit price might just be like 25 bucks or 50 bucks or just like a token amount. So you don't get frivolous reservations. But and then your end price might be better. Might be different, might be higher. In this case, I just chose 250 and 350s kind of at random. But you set what all these prices are. There isn't there isn't any kind of like mandate that you have to do things one way or another. The other thing that I'm looking at the chat right now. So Foster makes a really, really good point. Thank you, Foster. Taking pictures of loading and pictures of loading and unloading, that's just the way to do it, because that way there's no question about what goes where. And we get into best practices in another slide. We'll go into some of the other organizational best practices that I have. But before I move off of this screen, is there any other anything related to the actual robot events? And I just want to say that this is kind of a new feature. So if you do own a trailer and have feedback on ways we can improve this, please reach out to your RSM, because we do take that feedback and put it together. And Bill Rhino is a competition technology coordinator, and he works with the developers, and they've done a really great job at making changes to our robot event system so that it works out better for the people that are using it, which are DEPs. So some best practices, just overall regarding trailers. So, first step is work with other EPs in your region. How many other folks might be interested in renting or sharing the trailer and equipment? For packing things, using clear bins and writing down what goes inside each one is really, really helpful. Something I did was I color-coded all of my wires and all of my items with tape. And I would label the boxes with tape. So all the blue wires go in the blue box. All the yellow wires go in the yellow box, etc. And that makes it really, really easy to get stuff back. And checklist, we discussed that. I mean, if there is one best practice I would have everyone take away, would be include these instructions in a checklist, and designate someone to be responsible. And one of the things that I really liked to see, and what I did, was setting up modules with everything that you need to run something together. Is how the things that need to be together to run, you pack together. So for example, you might have a field box that has the field monitor, a Raspberry Pi, an extension cord, Ethernet cables. Everything that you would need to wire and run a field is all in one box. And I saw this at an event I went to this year. They had everything in a box, and then the box became a stand to elevate the monitor. So it was perfect. So everything was not only kept in the same place for transport, it was kept in the same place with everything needed to pack it back together. And I'll show you an example of that in just a slide. So these are two example pictures that I took this year, and that is, I'll show you the one on my left first, and that is a cart. So this was something that a team made, and the 12-foot long field panels would slide into each set of brackets here. And this would, all four panels, all four sides would fit on a field, would fit on the cart, and then they would roll the entire cart into the trailer. So this worked out great. And you can see it's just a couple of caster wheels, some wood. This is something that if you had a wood shop or a metal shop, it would probably be a great project for kids or even kids on the team, to just put something together. And this is helpful too, because you're not only is it storing things for transportation, but also in the trailer, you can lock all these wheels and keep it into one place. So that's, I think that would be a great tip if you had the space. The second is, this is the back of a field monitor, and it includes everything you need to run a field. So it has the match controller, a power strip, a Raspberry Pi, all the cables that you need to run everything together. And this is just a great way of organizing all the electronics that you need in one place. And this particular backer board, I think you can probably buy them separately, but they're used a lot in Project Lead the Way as like a test bed surface. But it's great for just sticking everything, and you can use zip ties to use put it through the VEX holes, and it works out great. And I've seen a few different variants of this in different places. And I think as more and more folks switch over to Raspberry Pis, I think that you're going to see more and more of this becoming a common occurrence. And it's also helpful because it makes everything look really, really clean, in that you could take all your wires and all your extra stuff, instead of having it on a heap on the floor, you could basically mount it to this and then mount that almost permanently to the monitor. So a few more best practices, and I also want to talk about the trailer grant program that we've had in the past. So using the Robot Events trailer reservation system is really nice because it basically opens it up for EPs that might need equipment to see what resources that are available, and especially for things like schools where they may not be able to make payments directly to other organizations. Robot Events is going to be already in their system as an approved vendor, so you could use this to make the reservation without them having to go through a process. So what I had to do back when I was a school teacher is, if I wanted to buy something, I would have to have it on an approved vendor list, which was a huge pain in the butt, but this is a way to kind of get around that. And this is definitely something to talk to your regional support manager about. So trailers are only useful if there's enough teams and events to sustain them, right? Otherwise, you're spending thousands of dollars to facilitate events that aren't happening. So discuss, how can you use your trailer to grow events in your region? And this might be something where they might know of a bunch of folks that want to run events but don't have any equipment. And your trailer might be that pathway to expand opportunities for more students in more places. And again, these are just examples. Trailers look different in different parts of the country. And to that, I want to talk a little bit about the trailer grant program. So in years past, we've had a limited amount of money for trailer, to give trailer grants to different places. And those trailer grants, number one, there weren't a lot of them. But number two, there were a lot of stipulations that went into them. So for instance, we asked that the trailer be used, I believe it was 8 events per season. And you could not charge more than $500 per event. So all of that is going into kind of the way the REC Foundation operates is we're a nonprofit. So when we have something like a trailer grant, it's because a company is sponsoring that grant. And we want to be good stewards of those donations. Because if we're not good stewards of donations, then we're not going to get more donations. So for the trailer grant program, we would provide a certain amount of money for a trailer, a certain amount of equipment that you might need, but there were stipulations based on that. But if you're if you're supplying your own trailer and setting up your own trailer, you can charge whatever you want. You can use it as often or as not often as you want. But all those things kind of go into what the kind of the grand plan is for your region. So I recommend, before kind of pulling the trigger on anything, talk to your regional support manager and see if they have any ideas or opinions about how you might how might your trailer best be used in your region. And I see there's a question here. Is there a set number of fields in a trailer? So no, the answer is no. For the trailer grant program, we provided, I think it was 3 fields for VRC, and it might have been the same for IQ. I don't remember. But I only had 2 trailers in my or 2 fields for VRC in my trailer. Other folks might have 3 or 4, or less or more. I mean, it could be anything. I mean, you could even take just a field and electronics and just have a little tiny pull-behind trailer like you use to go camping. There's really just a huge range, and it all comes down to what you're comfortable with. And that's something to talk about too. Is if you're not used to hauling a trailer, it takes some getting used to, and there are some factors in there. So if I have a lot of events in a city, with narrow streets, you may not want a 16-foot trailer because it is impossible to navigate this trailer where it needs to go. If you're out in the country, you may not have that limitation. So really, that's up to you. I see, Tina says she had 4 VRC fields, 4 IQ fields, and all miscellaneous stuff. Yeah, and with a 14-foot trailer, you have a lot more room, and you can keep those VRC side panels open. Again, that was one of the things. I made a decision to not buy a pickup truck in 2014. So in 2016, I had to go with the 6-foot trailer, not the 14. If I had to do it over, I probably would have gone with the 14. But, can't go back and change that. So with that, everyone, we have a few minutes before the next session, but if you have any last questions, feel free to throw it in the chat. And thank you so much, folks, for sharing your answers in the chat, sharing your questions, and thanks to Ryan and Carol for helping out with that. But any last word? All right, everyone, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. And please, if you have any questions, reach out to your RSM. Thank you.